So almond flour zucchini muffins, when they're done right, pretty good, actually. Let's do better than pretty good. Let's aim higher.
You're okay.
They're all right. Okay. Almond flour muffins, when they're done good, they are incredible. They have a light, tender, fluffy texture. If you just swap out almond flour in another zucchini muffin recipe, you are gonna be so disappointed. They are gonna be dense, they're gonna be heavy, they're gonna be spongy. You're not gonna be happy. This recipe is done right. They look like legit just muffins, but they're made with almond flour and they're super easy. I'm gonna show you how, so let's get started. When I'm doing baking recipes with zucchini, I like to use a box grater. I used to use my food processor just because it's simple, but I find that when you use a food processor, it releases too much moisture into the zucchini, so it doesn't need a lot of zucchini, so just grab your cheese grater and do this instead. And you're gonna use your widest shredder. Now you need 1.5 cups of zucchini. Here's the other trick. We're gonna slightly dry it first. So measure your zucchini first. I'm not gonna pack it in there. I'm just going to kind of loosely put it in there. Put it in a lint-free towel, or you could use paper towels too, works. Then you just take the towel, kind of squeeze it gently. See, if it's a box grater, it doesn't release a lot of moisture. And then just set this aside while we mix together our dry ingredients. So you need 2¼ cups of blanched almond flour. But I'm going to show you something, because how you measure your almond flour makes a huge difference of how much actually ends up in the bowl. If you click through to the recipe for my almond flour recipes, and actually all my gluten-free recipes, I always include the weights too, just so we're all on an even playing field here. But I want to show you how an almond flour recipe can go wrong. So I have my scale, and I'm gonna zero it out, and then I'm gonna measure one way. So this is like, I'm putting my scoop in, and I'm kind of like packing it in, and we are at 119 grams. The other method that a lot of almond flour recipes say is to spoon it in like this, so it's not packed down. And then I'm just gonna level it off over a bowl here. Okay, and that is 101 grams. So what was the first one? 119? So that's 18 grams difference. This is the method, honestly, that I always measure, not this one. I'll show you how I measure it. I kind of just use the bag and kind of fluff it up, and then I'll level it off. And this one is 111 grams. So see, it's widely different depending on how whoever created the recipe measured the almond flour. So they should have a note somewhere in there how they measured it, or they should have grams for it. I'm gonna change something in this recipe. It wasn't originally published this way, but I created this recipe quite a number of years ago, and then since then, I've done a lot more almond flour recipes, and I've found that adding either cornstarch or tapioca starch to almond flour recipes helps a ton. Adding something like cornstarch or tapioca starch just soaks up that moisture more, so gets rid of that spongy texture and makes it nice and fluffy and a more tender crumb. So I'm adding 1/4 cup of cornstarch. Hopefully we're good. And then 1½ teaspoons of cinnamon just for flavor, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder. Usually muffins have a lot of baking powder or baking soda in them because it bakes a short time, so you need that boost in rising. 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Just mix your dry ingredients together. If you have little clumps of the almond flour, you can just smash them down with your spoon, or better yet, you could probably take this mixture and sift it all too, but I'm way too lazy for that step, so we're just going with good enough here. Okay, and now we're going to mix together the liquid-ish ingredients. So you need 2 whole eggs and then an egg yolk. And the reason why I did that was because 3 eggs were too much, 2 was too less. So I'm doing 2 whole eggs and then the yolk. And then you only need 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm doing, I think it's vegetable oil, but you could do melted coconut oil too, any oil that you prefer. Almond flour it's just nuts. So it's pretty much all oil, it has a lot of oil in it. So with almond flour recipes, you never have to add a lot of oil. If a recipe has a lot of oil in it, I would be a little leery of it. Half a cup of brown sugar. If you go to the recipe comments, you can see what other sugars people use. I don't use a lot of sugar-free alternatives, but a lot of people that use my recipes do, and they always comment and say what works. So you could go there and check that out too. And then 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then I'm just gonna whisk all that together. Then we're just gonna combine everything together. First, I'll combine the wet and the dry ingredients together, and then we're going to add in our zucchini. In goes the zucchini. Okay, so that's it. Now we're ready to put it in our muffin pan. This thing, love it for making muffins. It's just a large cookie scoop. So I'm gonna take it and fill up the muffin cup about, I would say 3/4 full. If you're making cupcakes, then you don't want to overfill. If you're making muffins, I don't feel like it really makes a difference if you overfill the batter. I really like for baked goods, it's coarse sugar and it just adds a little crunchy, sugary finish, which how can that ever be a bad thing? Okay, and these just bake for about 20 to 22 minutes. You're looking for the tops to be set, so like when you put your finger on it, it should bounce back slightly. Almond flour recipes need a little bit extended of a baking time just because they're a lot more moisture. So you could always err on the side of slightly over baking than under baking. So let me show you something. So these are the ones that I just pulled out of the oven. These I made the other day without the cornstarch just to see a side by side. So you can see the middles kind of sunken. I mean, they both taste good. It's just not as full. The ones with the cornstarch, the muffin's just a little more set. It has more structure to it. And then we can open up both of them and see if there's a difference inside too. So I don't know. I don't know if you can actually tell from looking at it. So I just feel like the one with the cornstarch just has a lighter texture to it. It's something I can more feel than show you than the one without the cornstarch. And you could kind of see that it just looks a little more wet throughout, the one without the cornstarch than the one with the cornstarch. Good news for almond flour recipes too, since they have so much moisture in them, they stay at room temperature really well for a few days. When you cover them, like the tops kind of get a little bit wet just from the moisture kind of condensing down. So I recommend covering them loosely with foil if you're going to store them, or you could put them in the refrigerator too. You can find the full printable recipe in the description box below, and I will see you in the next video.